Good morning, everyone. How are you guys doing? Great. Good? You doing good this morning? Yeah. Awesome. How about that full moon last night, huh? Very, very cool. My name is Knate Higgins, and this is the commodity of being weird. And before we get started today, I just want to personally thank all of you for being here today. It takes a lot to get up out of bed in the morning to do anything that you do. I'm being serious. It takes a lot to get up. It takes a lot to get your butt up out of bed, to get here earlier, to take a part of your day, to rearrange your schedule to be here, to make awkward conversation in the lobby with people you may not know. It takes a lot to be here. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. It just warms my heart to see so many people here, to think I'm weird enough for you guys to sit here and I can give a talk about it. I want to get started and just we're going to do things a little differently today. I just want to hear what you guys think is weird. Just shout it out at me. Come on. Wake up, guys. Come on. What's weird? What's weird? What? Thank you. Trump is definitely weird. Definitely weird. Anybody else? What?
Cool Ranch Doritos.
Cool Ranch Doritos. Delicious, but also weird. Anything else? Anyone else? Childbirth. Whoa. Very weird. Very, very weird. It is. It totally is. Magical, but totally weird. You guys want to know what I find weird? Reality television. I think reality television is one of the strangest things that we've come up with as a society. It's a heightened and dramatized sense of reality that is produced by mass media to trick us into thinking that the people that we see on that television are really doing what they're doing. I just read an article not too long ago that 70% of Americans still believe that reality television is not fabricated. What most people don't know is that when you watch The Real Housewives of Rockingham County, there's actually a producer behind all those little fights saying, "Say that meaner. Do that better. Give her a worse backhanded compliment, Renee Plummer." Oh my gosh, listen, if there was a Real Housewives of Rockingham County, we all know that Renee Plummer would be at the top of that list. Are you kidding me? And I love her for that. That's amazing. But I think that it's a little strange that we believe that that's real. That women and other people, that women and men aspire to be those people that they see. It's really just a bunch of people hateful, blowing things out of proportion while drinking white wine. That's not something to aspire to. I've always found reality television to be very strange. What I'm going to describe to you today, folks, is little parts of my life. And I don't think I'm that weird, because this is just how I've been. This is just who I am. The definition of the word weird is very interesting to me, and I had to kind of look it up when asked to do this talk. And there are 4 different meanings to the word weird as an adjective. And the first one is very surprising. The first one, weird, pertaining to fate or destiny. The second is pertaining to witches, one of my favorite subjects, or the supernatural, or the unexplainable. Number 3 is having an abnormal character. And number 4 is detaining from the normal. The word weird actually started as a Germanic word for wired, and it meant what carried you from one point in your life to the next, the fate that took you from one place to the next. That word was forgotten about in about the 16th century until a little well-known man named Bill Shakespeare adopted the word, reclaimed it, respelled it, and made the 3 main characters of his play Mackers. I'm not going to say the actual name in this theater. I'm not going to do that. The 3 witches who controlled Macker's fate were called the Weird Sisters. I know, right? It's kind of cool. He made it a household name. Speaking of households, I grew up in White Rock, Maine, which is a suburb of Gorham, Maine, which is a suburb of Portland, Maine. I mostly just tell people I'm from Portland because it's a lot easier than explaining White Rock. But when I travel, I don't tell people I'm from Boston because that's just friggin' obnoxious. I grew up with 2 loving, wonderful parents. I still have just wonderful, loving parents. My mom, Donna, was just recently retired from being PC tech support for Unum, Provident, and IBM for 36 years. And my father was an optician, and he's also retired. My mom loves to horseback ride, and my dad loves to hunt and fish. And they're probably both the most unimaginative, uncreative people you've ever met in your entire life. And somehow they produced this and that. But even being so unimaginative, uncreative, and that may sound like a negative thing, but if they were sitting here right now, they would probably, and they don't really know how I came about. And in preparation for this talk, I had to ask them, I said, guys, what do you think was the weirdest thing about me growing up? What is the weirdest thing? What's the one thing you couldn't explain? And they both unanimously said, your obsession with magic. And I had to ask them, I said, what do you mean? And they said, when you were about 3 or 4 years old, you used to pick up sticks and call the winds to you. You used to pick usnea off the white birch out front of our house and stuff it into little bottles and put little toadstools around it in your room. You used to turn your dolls and your action figures into demons and monsters and fairies and elves, and we never exposed you to any of those things. I grew up on a steady diet of PBS and Sesame Street. I didn't see any of those things. And they couldn't explain it. And I still, to this day, can't explain it. Why I was obsessed with magic. Now, magic, not like sleight of hand magic, not like card trick magic, not David Copperfield magic. I'm talking real magic. Witchcraft, spirits, talking to ghosts. They didn't know why I was doing it. As I grew older, I got exposed to movies, technology, VHS, super excited, one of my favorite things to talk about. I have a VHS collection of about 900 films. And when I was a little kid, my parents used to take me over to Home Vision Video in Windham, Maine. I still remember the jingle. You ready for it? Home Vision Video! All right, anyways, so they used to take me there, and I could rent 2 movies for $1 for 3 days. And every single time I rented 2 films, Return to Oz and Labyrinth. Every weekend for 3 years. My parents, I don't know, they could not hear Jennifer Connelly talk one more time in a high-pitched voice. I swear to God, they were going to throw the tape out the window. But it exposed me to all these other movies that I really fell in love with as a kid. Dragon Slayer, Legend, The Dark Crystal, Explorers, Gremlins, Goonies, The Lost Boys, Hook, all these movies. And why I became so fascinated with them is that I was seeing things that I was seeing on my own on television. The things that I was playing with in my own sort of creative and imaginative play, I was seeing on television, and I was so excited to see them. I couldn't get enough of it. I read every book I could on magic. I read every book I could on spirit communication, UFOs, unexplained phenomena, everything I get my hands on. I don't know why. As I grew older, I would say probably about my year, I remember it was the year of when I turned 13. We got cable. And that first, when you first got cable way back in like the 90s and early 2000s, that when you got cable, you got 3 months free of premium cable, just so they could suck the life out of you when it was over. Well, we had that one summer, and it was the summer that I was 13, and I will never forget it, because we had that cable, and I didn't watch HBO, I didn't watch Showtime, I didn't watch Skinamax. I watched IFC, the Independent Film Channel. And I remember the first movie I ever watched at 13 years old, at midnight, I thought I was such a frickin' badass staying up that late, was Blue Velvet by David Lynch. Have you guys ever seen Blue Velvet? It's not a movie that a fucking 13-year-old should be watching. But I remember being so entranced by what I was watching. In the first 5 minutes of the movie, when Kyle MacLachlan leans over and sees the ear laying in the field, I knew I was watching something completely compelling. I was horrified, but I was fascinated at the same time. I found somebody that had taken film, made it weird, and I absolutely loved it. It resonated with me. That summer, I got to see some of my favorite movies of all time, and I was exposed to them, and it changed and shaped who I was. I got to see Sid and Nancy by Alex Cox. It introduced me to punk rock. I got to see Train Spotting and the horror of drugs and what it does to people. I got to see movies like Dead Alive by Peter Jackson. Oof, and that's another weird one for a 13-year-old. Prospero's Books by Peter Greenaway. Watch it. That is a weird frickin' movie. But these things all started to resonate with me. And that summer, at the end of the summer, I saw a movie called The Rocky Horror Picture Show. And The Rocky Horror Picture Show changed my life. I remember going to bed after I watched it and laying there, and all I could think of was that film. What did I just watch? And I woke up the next morning, and the only thing I could think about was that film. What did I just watch? So I immediately went over to Home Vision Video, had to watch it again. And I'll never forget this, and this is how much of a nerd I am. I remember I rented the 15th anniversary edition box VHS, which at the beginning of the film had 10-minute documentary about what Rocky Horror actually was. And when I got to see all of the people spread out in line, in costumes, screaming and yelling at the screen, throwing props, rice, holding newspapers over their heads, squirt guns, I thought to myself, I want that. I wanted that more than anything. I wanted that shared experience where a bunch of weirdos were all in a room together and they were loving film. So after about a year of poring over it, I finally got up the courage and I opened the phone book and I called every single solitary movie theater in Cumberland County, Maine, and asked them if they would play the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And every single solitary one of them said no. It's too much of a mess. Last time we did it, someone threw an egg at the screen. It's queer. I hated that one. I didn't know what it meant, but I hated it. Except one movie theater. The tiniest, smallest, rinkiest, stinkiest, weirdest flea bag, hole-in-the-wall movie theater, the Movies on Exchange Street in Portland, Maine, said yes. Sure, Rocky Horror, yeah, oh my gosh, we haven't done that song and dance in about, I don't know, 15 years. You want to do it again? Sure. What do you want to do with it? That was Steve, the guy that owned the theater. It's this short little man, he was amazing. And I said, well, I want to do it. I'll get a cast together of people. We'll perform it in front of the screen, and we'll make these little bags of shit, which has the props in it, and people will buy them for $1, and we'll keep the money from that, and you guys will keep the money from the tickets, and we'll just do it that way. And he said, sure, sounds like a good idea, businessman, and hung up the phone. And so with that, I had brought Rocky Horror Picture Show back to Portland. But I didn't have a cast behind me to do what I needed to do. So I went to my mom and I said, Mom, what do I do? I said, I'm a weird, awkward kid. I don't have a lot of friends. I kind of skirted on every social circle that there was. And she said, Nate, 3 things you should always remember. Be kind to everyone. Exclude no one. And when you give help, you get help. So the next day, I went to the Xerox machine at the library and I printed out a bunch of flyers. And I posted them all around my high school and they said, are you a fan of the Rocky Horror Picture Show? Come see Knate Higgins. If you'd like to be a part of the Rocky Horror Picture Show live at the Movies on Exchange Street in Portland, Maine. All are welcome. And the next day I had about 10 or 12 people, all from various groups in high school, all different cliques. I had some band geeks, I had some theater nerds, I had some art burnouts, I had somebody from the basketball team to play Rocky, which was awesome, and I had my favorite stoner friend, Kaylee. And when we showed up on the first night for Rocky Horror, there was a line of about 200 people waiting to get in. And I couldn't believe it. We did the Rocky Horror Picture Show at the Movies on Exchange Street for 5 years, from the age of 15 until 20. 15 years old is not something, you shouldn't be, looking back on it, the stuff that we saw and the stuff that we did, people were coming to see 15-year-olds perform Rocky Horror in front of, it was a little strange to me thinking about it now, but we loved it. We loved it. Our friends, I will never give up those moments with my friends. But I remember when I was about 17 years old, there was a change. It had really caught on at that point, and there were a lot of people coming to the shows, and a lot of different people were coming to the shows. And I remember one day when I was in the theater, somebody came up behind me, and I'm of course all dressed up like Frank, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and they were like, "Hey, Nate," and I said, "Yeah," and they're like, "I think someone's having sex in the back row," and I was like, "What?" And they're like, "I think someone is having coitus in the back row." And at 17 years old, I had to walk up, go to the back row, and saw that two people were definitely in flagrante, and said to them, "Excuse me, guys, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go." And so they left. And after the show ended, I went outside, and those two people were still standing there. And I was horrified, terrified, totally weirded out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do?" And they came up to me and they said, "Hey, just to let you know, hey, we're really sorry about that. We didn't mean to cross a boundary, didn't mean to cross a line." They weren't really having sex, they were just getting really heavy. And I was like, "Okay, well," I was like, "Yeah, it's cool, it's no problem, it's no big deal." And they're like, "Well, we just wanted to say, thank you for creating the space." And I was like, "Well, yeah, sure, thank you." I was like, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, there's this Angel Fire forum that is out there on the internet right now that says that your Rocky Horror here at the Movies on Exchange is a safe space for people who are sex positive, for people who are queer, for people who are cross-dressers, and for people who are swingers." Now, I knew what a swinger was because I'd seen Austin Powers. But I thought to myself, wow, that was kind of cool. That this space all of a sudden became some place where people felt comfortable enough to come and express themselves in many different ways. But it was out there on the internet, and from this little commodity, we had created a small community. After Rocky Horror, I did it all throughout high school, and when I left high school, I said I wasn't going to go to college. I said I was going to move to Portland. I was going to raise money to go to India to fight AIDS, and I was going to write about it. I'd never picked up a friggin' pen in my entire life. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do, but I had this in my mind. This is what I wanted to do as soon as I got out of high school. So I had to raise money to go to India. So a friend of mine who had just bought a small space next to the Movies on Exchange Street, she opened up a hookah bar, an Alice in Wonderland themed hookah bar. And she said, "Why don't you come and do a show for us?" And I said, "Well, what kind of show would I do?" And she said, "Why don't you do a drag show?" And I said, "I've never done drag before." And she was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, Rocky Horror, of course, yeah, okay." And so I had to create this drag persona. I agreed to it. So when creating a drag persona, you always have to start with a name. And I knew that Wonderland had to be a part of it because I grew up loving Alice in Wonderland. I always felt like Alice. I always felt like I was in a different world. And I knew that Wonderland had to be a part of it. And also it was an Alice in Wonderland themed hookah bar, so it just made sense. But I had to come up with my first name. And I had no idea what that would be. So I went to my best stoner friend, Kaylee, and I said, "What do you think I should be, Kaylee? What do you think my first name should be?" And she was like, "I've been thinking about that." And she's like, "I think you should be called Bunny." And I said, "Why Bunny?" And she's like, "Well, you're a vegetarian, and you go on a lot of dates." I was like, "Yeah, that's right. Okay, Bunny it is. Bunny Wonderland was born." So I did the show, and I raised some money. I didn't end up going to India, but I had caught the attention of Southern Maine Pride, which is the pride organization for Southern Maine. And they said to me, "We love what you do. You have such a great character. You're totally different than any other drag queen we've ever seen before, obviously." And they said, "Would you be our youth ambassador for Southern Maine Pride?" I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, we always have a queen of pride, we always have a king of pride, and we'd like you, for the first time ever, to be the princess of pride. So I thought, why the hell not? Sure. So I had to kind of get things together, so I got a better wig. I learned a palette of makeup that fit my face, and I started to develop the character of Bunny Wonderland. And as I developed that character, all of the sort of women that influenced my life in these films started to bubble up inside of me. In Bunny Wonderland, there's a little bit of Jennifer Connelly from Labyrinth. There's a little bit of Fairuza Balk from Return to Oz. There's definitely a lot of Dorothy from Wizard of Oz. There's this sort of effervescence in Bunny that just evokes this sort of old soul and comfort. I get my foul mouth from my grandmother. There's a lot of my grandmother, Nana Grace, in Bunny. My grandmother has the best lines ever. After our wedding, my grandmother woke up and she actually said to everybody that was at the breakfast table, she's like, Jesus Christ, I am so hungover, my mouth tastes like the bottom of a bird cage. If that's not Bunny Wonderland, because if you've ever seen Bunny Wonderland, that is Bunny Wonderland to a T. So every time you hear that voice, that's my grandmother. And this was just something I needed to do. This was just something I wanted to do. But when I did this, I had to go at it with the same thing that my mom told me way back in the day. Be kind to everyone. Exclude no one. And when you give help, you get it. So Bunny is based off of this. I was never bitchy in the dressing rooms. I never talked behind people's back. I just was there for love. I did this out of love. To be weird, you have to do it out of love. Anytime that there was a drag queen that didn't have a place to go, maybe she was just getting started, I said, come on over and do a show with me. Be on Team Weird. When people asked for help, I never said no. I took every gig that I possibly could. I did every charity event that I possibly could. Did every club event that I possibly could. And that's how I got my name out there. I met my husband at the gay bar that I was working at. Now, I had gone back to school, forget this, ladies and gentlemen, early childhood education. I taught preschool in Portland, Maine for 4 years. And I was also a drag queen on the weekends. So that in itself was so strange, I know. So strange enough that the SALT School for Documentary Studies did a documentary on my dual life. And you can still look at that documentary and it really, it fills me with so much love when I look at that sort of part of my life because it was so crazy. But it was so rewarding at the same time. I was doing something with kids, but I was also being a foul-mouthed adult on the weekends. And when I met my husband, I was like in the full swing of Bunny, and I wanted to change because the person I had met, I had fallen in love with. You know what's really weird is love at first sight. Love at first sight is weird. If you've ever felt it, it is one of the strangest feelings you've ever felt. And with this person that I had met, I had found the person that I was going to be with for the rest of my life. So I moved down here to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And I said goodbye to Bunny for a little bit to restart my life here. Well, that was a huge mistake because I got really fucking antsy. And I was looking at the Spotlight, I can't remember what it was back in the day. It's been about 8 years now, so it's been so many different names. But I saw an audition notice for Rent at Seacoast Repertory Theater. And Rent was one of the only shows that I really loved in high school. I was never a big musical person, believe me, even though I'm into theater and all that, and I've done a boatload of musicals, I actually really don't love musical theater. It's kind of this weird thing. But Rent I really liked because it was really punk rock and really cool, and it spoke to me on this guttural level. So I auditioned, I got in, and I never left. I found something at Seacoast Repertory Theater that spoke to me and just, I don't know what it was, but looking back on it now, it was definitely how haunted that building is. I can usually walk into a building and know when it's haunted, and that I felt the energy in that room, in that space, and it made me feel at home. Now, as I was doing all these musicals and plays and all this crazy stuff, I loved what I was doing, but every time I invited my friends to come see me, nobody wanted to come. Because all the weird, freaky-deaky, weirdo friends that I had don't like musical theater. So I had to come up with something that would bring the weirdos out. So I thought, Bunny and boobs. And I produced my first burlesque show for Seacoast Repertory Theater with Lady Luck Burlesque, because Lady Luck Burlesque had reached out and they had said, we don't have a space. And I said, okay, well then come on in. Be kind to everyone, exclude no one. When you give help, you get it. That burlesque show sold out in 3 days. And Bunny got to be back. And I got to share Bunny with Portsmouth. From that, we noticed that we had struck something at the Rep. That there was a need for something other than musicals and plays. There was a need for something off-kilter, for something different. So I grabbed a couple other people from the community. We started Let's Be Real, which is our cult film series with Tim Fife. I called on Joy Smith, and we created I Could Just Diary, which is I don't know if you guys sound like you know it. I Could Just Diary is something that I came up with that is a community event where we get everybody together in a room, and whether you're a bartender, ballerina, lawyer, doctor, doesn't matter, you get up in front of a podium and you read your most embarrassing high school memory, or from your diary, for everybody to hear. We created Eat It Up Food Talks, which is our food series, which wasn't that weird, but when you talk to the chefs, you find out they're pretty weird. And from this, we were able to create a small community, a place where people could come and be themselves. We always encourage people, whenever they come to a red light show, to pay what you want. Because when you pay what you want, there's no excuse that you can't afford to come. I always wanted it to be accessible to all. I wanted my weirdness to be accessible to everybody. I started to notice at the theater that it was not doing so well. And a lot of the programming I was doing was helping keep the doors open. And that was awesome, but it was also very scary for me. And I knew that I needed to get another job. I couldn't just keep doing that. So I moved over to the magical land of Pickwick's Mercantile. Which, if you've never been into Pickwick's, it's incredibly magical. And of course, that resonated with me. And when I moved over to Pickwick's, I found this wonderful team of people who were all creative, who all supported each other and all bolstered each other up. But again, I was still the weirdo in that group. And the weirdo in every group that I go to, but I love it. I love being weird. I love being that person. And when it came to what we were going to do for Halloween a couple years ago, or last year, I should say, I asked my proprietress if she would ever be interested in doing something a little different. If she had enough faith in me to open up a pop-up witchcraft shop. And she kind of thought about it for a second, and she said, well, what would we do with it? And I said, well, in my true manner as an artist, what I'd like to see happen is I'd like to see this space be a safe haven for people who have a weirder or darker sensibility. Have them come in. They can buy taxidermy. They can buy alligator claws. They can buy baculum, which is raccoon penis bones, for those of you who don't know. One of our best sellers. They can come in. They can have their cards read. They can divine their future. They can skirt the line between the real and the ethereal. And let's give back to the Portsmouth Halloween Parade. When you give help, you get help. And she said, let's do it. And when we opened Deadwick's last year, there was a line of about 350 people waiting to get in. And I'd never seen that with opening a retail space. People begged us, literally begged us with emails, with letters, with notes, with phone calls, you cannot close Deadwick's. It's a place where I feel at home. It's a place that has brought me magic, has brought me life. And that, to me, meant the world. And so we decided to keep Deadwick's open. Keep the doors open as long as we possibly can. Bring in your weird people. Bring in your people who speak to spirits. Bring in your people who have always wanted to try a pendulum but never really knew how to use one. Bring them in. Expose them to the weird. Let them play. I would not be able to do what I've done without the people that have helped me all that time. I'm so blessed to have the capacity to call in these strange people to me. We call my husband Saint Crazy Come At Me because every time we go somewhere, if there's a crazy person in the group, they will immediately find my husband. I'm the exact opposite. It's usually the horror movie loving weirdo that finds me. But I wouldn't be able to do any of those things without the people. To be weird, you have to have heart. You can't just be weird for the being weird. If you're not a weird person, and we all have weird qualities about us, we all have a little bit of magic inside of us. We all have a little bit of that fate that pulls us to the next place. So what I do is just what it is. I'm only one producer, I'm only one artist. And I'm not the weirdest person in town, guys. I'm not. I'm really not. There are other weirdos out there. And you have to support them. And you can do that by just taking yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. Go to the Players Ring and see a show that is brand new, that has half a house. Go to the music hall and see a movie that is just struggling to get its name out there. Whether it may sound interesting to you or not, just go. Go over to 3S and see the band that you've never heard of before that is probably sleeping in their van after they get off that stage. Go see them, because they're usually a little bit too weird for what everybody else can think. I would not be here today if it weren't for the three things. Be kind. Exclude no one. And when you give help, you get help. Thank you very much, everybody. Oh, thank you.
We're just going to take some questions.
Yeah.
Nate will allow us.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any
I
weird questions?
love your weird questions. Please give them to me all. Please, all of them. All of them. All of them. Yeah.
Do you have any weird siblings, or is it just you?
I have no weird siblings. Well, that's not true. Everybody has weird qualities to them. My brother is definitely kind of a weirdo. I have two half-brothers and a half-sister. My brother's a banker. My sister is, she works in retail, and my other brother's a truck driver. I came from a family of no musicians, of no artists. I really, truly don't know. My parents actually used to joke that I was the pink sheep of the family. Yes.
What makes you uncomfortable?
What makes me uncomfortable? What makes me uncomfortable is I would say hate. I would say it can be little things. It can be, I work in retail, and I see sometimes how people interact with each other, just the people that they're close with. And I hear a lot of people just treating each other really shitty. We had a woman the other day, this guy bought himself something just really nice. He just bought himself a little wallet, $40. And about an hour later, that wife brought that wallet back and said, "I'm sorry, but my husband's not allowed to spend money." And put the wallet back down, gave the credit card and put it back on. And I thought to myself, wow, that's your wife. That's someone you're supposed to love and encourage. And no matter your financial situation, I mean, there's more to that story all the time, of course. There's always more to the story than we see. But that I thought was really mean. I don't like when people are mean to each other. I just have never got that. I'm not a mean person. Bunny is never a mean person. She's never bitchy. She's never catty. How do you get anywhere in life being that way? I've never understood it. Just having respect for other people and their opinions, whether they are not yours or whatever. At the end of the day, you walk away from those conversations or whatever. It is what it is. People are people. But when people are mean and they're hateful, that's what makes me the most uncomfortable. Anybody else? Yes?
Do you still work with kids at all? Do you do any programs with kids?
I would love to work with kids. I love kids. I don't know if I will ever have kids. I would like to at some point in my life. I'm definitely not ready for that. My husband and I are definitely not ready for that right now. Got to build that Pickwick's empire. Yes, I do get to work with kids. When kids come into Deadwick's, we've created a little kids space in Deadwick's, a kid-friendly space for kids to explore and play with magic. Now, if Deadwick's was around when I was a kid, I would never leave that frickin' store, okay? And there are kids that come in that are completely entranced, and I really try to give as much attention to those kids. Parents don't even talk to the parents. Those kids are what it's all about, because this is the first time that they're seeing real magic. This is a chance for them to take themselves out of the Harry Potter world and actually see what scientific results from magic can be, what energy is, how we push magic around, how we use it to influence and to shape our lives in a positive manner. And to share that with kids is really cool. And I'd like to think that when I make potions for little kids, which I do I would say probably about 3 to 4 potions a week for kids, to see the enchantment on their face, that's magic. That to me, that is magic. To me, that is, I still get to work with kids in that sense. So yeah. Anyone else? Yes?
Do you have any weird plans for the weekend?
Any weird plans for the weekend? I work a ton. And my time is spent doing a lot of work for other people. And I wish I had more time to myself. So weekends, especially being in retail, it definitely gets weird. I mean, if I'm working at Deadwick's, it's always weird. It's always weird. Restaurant's opening soon. My gosh, soon. Very soon. Very, very soon. Very soon. My husband keeps telling me very soon. Yes? Oh, yeah.
What's the weirdest performance you've ever done?
Oh, so easy. Okay. So easy. Okay. So remember how I said no to nothing? I took on everything. So I did this. Oh man, this is one of my favorites. I was teaching at the preschool center. I was teaching at Youth and Family Outreach in Portland, Maine, and we had the executive director for Planned Parenthood. Their kid went to my school and I taught their kid. And they knew I was Bunny, and all the parents knew I was Bunny. They were totally cool with it. Some of them came out to see shows and stuff like that. And that one particular parent said, "We love you as Bunny. Would you come and be our guest of honor at the fundraiser for Planned Parenthood at Bubba's Sulky Lounge next month?" And I said, "Yes, of course I will. Of course I'll do that for you. That would be awesome." So I show up in my cute little outfit and my bunny hair, and I'm crazy. And I show up and they're like, "Okay, so here's what the plan is. Your performance kind of tonight is just going to be greeting people as they come in. This is a silver platter. It's filled with organic condoms and organic tampons. You'll be handing those out all night long. And meeting and greeting and taking photos with people." And I was like, okay. Say yes to everything, give help, and you will receive help. Okay. Here you are, folks. Welcome. Welcome to Planned Parenthood with your condoms. Hi. That was probably the weirdest performance I've ever done. I had no idea what I had signed myself up for Planned Parenthood, but that was definitely the most awkward, weirdest, strangest performance I ever did. Yeah.
So do you know what makes a condom organic?
That I don't actually. I really truly don't. I don't know. I just know they were like super special condoms that Planned Parenthood was giving out. Eco-friendly tampons. That's what it was. Eco-friendly. My God. Get my terminology correct. Yes.
So I'm not a big the magic and the scientific magic you're talking about.
Yes.
But I've been into Deadwick many times. And is there a death element that you bring into all of it? Because I mean, it's called Deadwicks, and like,
yeah.
is there?
Very good question.
Do you have a certain, what are your thoughts on it? Or?
Sure. I grew up with not a lot of death in my life, but for some reason, as a child, I was enthralled by the spirit world and ghosts and where the soul went after you died. I was 18 or 19 years old when I had my first relative die. It was my grandmother. And death is a very strange thing. It changes you as a person, and it speaks to you in many weird, strange ways. The death element is that we only are in these vessels for so long. And at some point, we're going to die. It's just the fact of the matter. No matter how much money you have, no matter how good you look now, no matter how much stuff you have piled up in your house, it doesn't matter. No what car you drive, you're going to be dead at the end of it. And Deadwicks is really about celebrating the life that we have and keeping death as a reminder that you can change your world positively with the energy that you carry, because when you die, that energy is going to go away. And we don't know where it goes. So I believe that you should give as much positive energy in this world, and you will receive all that positive energy back. And I truly believe that your soul is nourished by love and kindness, and that when your soul ascends or descends or goes wherever, you take that positive energy with you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
What's the weirdest criticism you've ever had?
The weirdest criticism I've ever had. One time, this isn't weird, I would say it's one of the harshest. One time I had someone tell me that I didn't know who Bunny Wonderland was. That was a hard pill to swallow because it was from a peer that I had a lot of respect for. But it made me think. Do I know who Bunny Wonderland really is? And I encourage moments like that. I encourage moments where people make you question yourself. I thought it was kind of a dick question, but it did make me think. It did make me take pause. And I think those moments, it doesn't matter how awful or anything like that. If somebody gives you those aha moments, it can just flip a switch in your brain. And from that, Bunny Wonderland got even better. Thank you. Yes?
I was at my hairdresser yesterday, and she performs weddings, and she says she could also probably do a funeral. And I never filled it out. Have you ever done a funeral?
No, but I'm doing my first wedding in November.
A wedding.
Yes, I'm doing my first wedding, and they kind of were asking me to do it as Bunny, but I won't do it as Bunny. I can't. No, you know why? Because I don't trust Bunny Wonderland with somebody's wedding. I don't do that. I just don't. I just know that it'll turn into something completely different. Also, it's someone's special day. You don't want to look back on that and go, oh, wait a minute, I don't know if we should have had Nate dressed up as Bunny. You know, so I really wanted to just, I've never performed a funeral. I mean, I would.
Could do funerals.
I would. It would be totally macabre. I think it would be amazing.
I'm booking you for mine.
All right. Okay. All right. I love it. Crematorium. Bam.
Time for one more question, I think.
Time for one more question. Yes.
So I think there's an element of weird in a lot of people, or
maybe in everybody.
Yeah.
What is it that gives you the courage to live your weird out loud that makes you a little bit different from those of us who maybe don't live it as loudly?
That's a very good question. And I think it kind of comes back to what I said at the beginning of the talk. The things that I described to you today that may seem a little off or strange are just things that are part of my life. I have to live my life. I have to do these things. What fuels me every morning to get up out of bed is bringing a little bit of strangeness to somebody's world. And it's not even on a conscious level. It's just something that moves me every single time. To live out loud so weirdly is, everybody can do it. It's just, it is getting the courage to do it. People always say, let your freak flag fly. But I think you can let your freak flag fly at home when no one else is seeing it. Everybody does it. Everyone has those weird, strange human behaviors that they do. Those are weird. You don't share those with people. My weirdness also is almost kind of anecdotal in a strange sense, where it's things that I, don't particularly find them weird. I've just been surrounded by them my entire life. And I truly believe that it's my mission on this earth as a human being and as a vessel, as a spiritual being, as a magical person, to spread that magic around. There's magic in this right now. There's magic in a group of people, the energy that you give. There's magic in what you put out. There's magic in art. There's magic in performance. There's magic in just walking down the street to work. It's what moves you. It's that fate that takes you from one place to the next. And I just do that. I just turn the volume up on that a little bit. Yeah. Thank you.